by way of introduction, I'm Kendall McBroom, and this is fall of 2021, and I'm doing that 2020, excuse me. And we're doing this as a recording for history, and we're starting out with Stav churches, and they are churches that the Norwegians had in time frame of about 800 AD, you know, a few years ago, to say the least. Anyway, these Stav churches that you see here were very nice buildings, and the Christians, when they started to migrate into Norway, they see these nice big churches, and they ask if they can come and use the church when they're not using it. And story goes that the Norwegians, with the Stav churches, now the religion that was originally in here was they were worshiping the Norwegian gods, Thor, Odin, these mystical characters that they were, I guess, worshiping. And then the regular Christian Norwegians that came in a little bit later, they come into these fancy Stav churches and ask if they can use the sanctuary when it's not being used. And, the Norwegians are always very happy to have anybody, way up in the boondocks where Norway is. And they, said, sure, no problem at all. Well, bottom line, it takes about 20 years before the Christians have converted the original Norwegians into what we now know as the Norwegian Lutheran Church. Enough said about that. Now I'm talking about time frame of 800. We move forward to year of about 1030. Now we're talking about going to an area probably that we now know as Iceland. And story goes here now that Leif Erikson, now this is, now we're talking about, I don't know if you can see where I'm.
Use the screen, Kendall.
Okay. Oh, all right. I'm talking about Leif Erikson leaving here and migrating over to Iceland he's not in there very long, and he gets into a fight with a guy in a bar, and ends up killing the guy. Well, rather than to risk a trial, Leaf gathers up his group of 30-some people, men and women, and 2 boats, and they go from Iceland down to what we now call Nova Scotia, and that's this area here and here, and right in this area in Nova Scotia, there's an area on the ground where Leif Erikson and his 30-some odd people had lived for about 20 years. And that's right in this area here. Now, during that 20 years, they continued to look around and see what was in other areas. And we know that they go clear around over to what's now Minnesota. And they went that far in, and the Norwegians, they took a slab of cement, or of rock, and inscribed in that rock, Norwegian writing and stuff like this. And the unfortunate part, they didn't date it, but from the writing on what's now known as the Kensington runestone was found clear in here into what's now Minnesota. And so we know that Leif Erikson got that far in and then came back. There's lots of other documentation, written in rocks and stuff along here that Leif Erikson and his crew were in here in the year 1000. Back up a minute. Now we are under some delusion that 1492, Christopher Columbus sails the ocean blue and discovers America first. Bullshit, it was first. He was at least second. The Norwegians. Yeah, and that's what the Norwegians were running around in. And Nova Scotia, North America. Okay. Now, all right. Now, okay, Norwegians discovering America first? No, they were really second. Christopher Columbus, bullshit, he was number 3. A few years later, Marcia and I are running around Alaska, and we are up in this region in Alaska, and we are told that there's very interesting interesting things with a river cruise here in Alaska, and I'm trying to remember the river that it's on, but it's right in this area here, and we're told that go to that river cruise, and we do that, and the first stop on the river cruise is where there's a group of people that they now call themselves Eskimos. And we're talking with each stop is about 20 minutes, so you kind of got to get things going fast. We're chit-chatting with this nice young Eskimo lady, and she's talking about when her relatives had come in across the Bering Straits over into here in the year 900. Bingo. The Russians were the first people that discovered America sometime in the early 1900s. Christopher Columbus, my God, no, he's number 3. Go a little bit further. We go from the Eskimo group to the next group of Native Americans, and they identify themselves as Tlingettes. And the lady that is talking about that, she also talks about going to school out east. She went to Boston University. She was going to graduate the next year. And I asked her, well, what are you going to do, after that? She shrugs her shoulders and says, well, probably come back here and teach. Well, people in Alaska, they've got so much money coming in off from the pipeline that they don't need to worry about anything. Alaska also pays for schooling of any Native Alaskan person to go to any college in North America, and it's a free ride. And, we know what colleges are here, so that's a real bag of money that they're laying on it. But anyway, I'm talking about the lady that's in the second group, and she says that her group was called Tlingettes, and she laughs about that and says that Disney had come up and had borrowed the name Tlingette, turned it into Klingon for the War of the Worlds movie that he had, So she makes a big joke of that. And I asked her, well, how do you know all about these things? And she points to a totem pole. And that is their way of keeping track of dates and that sort of thing. And, sense of the totem poles, you know, than when you hear these kinds of things. But what blows you away is that, you know, the casual behavior of young people in Alaska. But anyway, end of story. Oh, here is where Christopher Columbus, you know, he never did hit North America. What he hit was in here, the islands down here in the Caribbean, 1492. So, all right, he was number 3. End of story.